rent an old cottage on the edge of a village. It used to be a farmhouse. The only neighbor is the building next door, which used to be the stable for this place. Thick stone walls, low ceilings that make every step echo, and a cellar under the kitchen that's more like a small room than a normal basement. Gray brick all around, pipes sweating on cold nights. One pull chain bulb that hums when it's on. The washing machine and dryer live down there. I've been here long enough that the cellar never bothered me. It's cold and it smells old, that's about it. Back in late winter, I started hearing something at night. Not the house settling, not the drain or the boiler. It was a sound that comes through stone, if that makes sense. Thin and far away, like a voice trying to climb up through the floor. If I held my breath, I kept thinking I could make out a word. It kind of sounded like help. The first time it happened, I went straight down with my phone torch, pulled the chain, waited for that flicker the bulb does. Same room as always. Gray brick, webby corner. The machine's quiet. I said hello into the space. Nothing. I stood there long enough to feel dumb and went back up. I heard it again the night after, same time. That same thin call from below. I went down again, said hello a couple times, quite loud. Walked the perimeter. Silence. By the fifth time, I was annoyed at myself. I checked the locks. I stepped into the yard with a flashlight and stared at the vents. In the kitchen, I stood with my hand on the cellar hatch and waited. The sound came one more time, dragged out and tired, then stopped. After that, nothing for a week, then nothing for months. I decided it was just old stone acoustics and my brain filling the rest in. Fast forward to summer. I went down to do a load and caught a smell I couldn't place. Not damp, not mold, just wrong. I cleaned the trap, ran hot water through the standpipe, bleached the floor. Next time down, stronger. It got to where the smell sat in the back of my throat, even upstairs. I finally asked my neighbor if they'd noticed anything on their side. They said yes, worse near the back wall, and then mentioned something I'd never heard about. A tunnel. Apparently, when this was a working farm, there was a low passage connecting the house and the stable, so they could move stuff without going out into the weather. Most of it's bricked up now, but there were still bits of it, hidden behind boards and newer brick. We decided to take a look. The passage was narrow. You had to turn your shoulders to get through. There was grit under your palms, and that old lime taste on your tongue. 10 feet in, it bent. That's where the smell punched us. We saw a shoe first, then the rest. A man was curled in the bend, turned toward the wall like he'd been trying to push himself up. 60s maybe. Layers of clothes. A torn rucksack half under him. He'd been there a while. We backed out fast and called the police from the garden. They were kind and clinical. Tape, masks, coveralls, a lot of quiet moving around. Later, one of them explained what they thought happened. They'd had reports of a homeless man drifting through the area over the last year. Best guess? I have no idea how, but he found the tunnel at night, used it for shelter, got turned around in the dark, and never found his way back to either end. No trauma, no sign of foul play. Exposure and dehydration in an awful little pocket of old stone. Just an awful accident. I stood in the kitchen after they left, did the math I didn't want to do, and felt it hit. Late winter, that exact week. 5 nights of a thin voice from below, and then silence. I'd been standing above him saying hello into a room, and he'd been under my floor saying it back into a wall. They bricked the passage from both sides and sealed it properly. Fresh mortar, bright against the old. The smell took weeks to fade. The cottage went back to its normal noises. Pipes ticking, floorboards creaking, the odd drip outside. Life carried on, because that's what it does. But I don't feel the same in the cellar anymore. I still go down. I have to. I pull the chain, get the machine going, and stand there for a second without meaning to. On certain nights, when everything lines up, the spin cycle, the house settling, the way sound travels in old rooms, it's like the brick remembers. There's this stretched, thin note that rides along the wall. If I let the other sounds fall away, it turns into a word I don't want to hear again. I moved into the house in late September, the kind of place that looks normal in daylight and like a crime scene after 10 p.m. It was cheap because the owners were motivated. The first week I joked the basement had personality. Old paint, one bulb, shelves with jars that used to be food. The photos turned up on a Sunday, when I finally attacked the clutter. Under a mildewed tarp was a plain banker's box with no label. When I lifted it, dust came off like breath. Inside were photographs. Thousands, rubber banded into bricks, spanning nearly 60 years. The oldest were black and white, family on the steps, then color, 70s orange, 90s gloss. Always the same house, my house. I have no idea how this happened, but I got hooked. Each night I'd sit on the floor and sort stacks. Strangers stood in rooms I recognized. The cracked kitchen window. The hallway dent from a doorknob. The basement. Always the basement. Especially the utility corner with the steel sink and the darker square of concrete. Sometimes there were candids. People asleep on the couch. A kid eating cereal. It felt intrusive, but addictive. About a month in, I hit the last rubber band around midnight. My phone was upstairs. The first photo made my brain stutter. It was my bedroom. The angle was from the doorway, the door barely open. The bed had my blue duvet, my nightstand with its water ring, and me, curled on my side, asleep. I told myself it was a trick of recognition. The second photo killed that. Same room, closer. My face is clearer, and there's the small birthmark under my ear. I can see the chipped corner of my phone case. This doesn't even make sense as I'm recounting it. But the third photo was taken from the foot of the bed, like someone was kneeling there. My face is blown out by the flash, and in the lower right corner is a blur shaped like a knee. I went cold so fast it hurt. The rest of the stack was all me. Different nights. One with the TV glow on my wall. One where I'd kicked the duvet off. One where a shadow, someone, stood at the edge of the frame. I dropped the photos. I heard them slap on the concrete. I ran for my phone, killed the basement light, locked the basement door. I dialed 999 and tried to explain while staring up the stairs, half expecting the door to open by itself. I don't understand. There are pictures of me sleeping. The operator asked if I was safe and could I leave. The police came fast. 2 officers. They did the porch thing, then cleared rooms with that loud cop voice. One came back with the box and this look. He said, quietly, "You need to see this." They brought me to the basement. The air felt thicker. The officer tapped the darker square of concrete under the utility sink with his shoe. "Hollow," he said. The other pulled the sink forward, and behind it was a cutout in the wall. A rectangle you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. A crawl space. Inside were crushed drink cans, wrappers, a sleeping bag that was more stained than fabric. And along the cinder block were more photos. Newer ones. Some clipped to twine with clothespins. Me in the living room. Me brushing my teeth. Me carrying laundry. Me unlocking the front door with groceries. I thought I was going crazy. The officers didn't. They called it in, said signs of inhabitants and unauthorized occupancy. One asked if I'd noticed anything missing. I said no, which was somehow worse. They checked windows, locks, the basement walkout. One pointed out dust patterns near the crawl space opening. A path, like knees had polished the grit. He showed me the back of my bedroom door, where the paint had a tiny scuff exactly where the latch meets the frame, like someone practiced closing it quietly, 100 careful times. They told me to pack a bag and go stay with friends. "Tonight," the older one said. "Don't sleep here." They didn't say why, but I got it. Whoever had been watching me knew the house better than I did. I left. I don't remember locking the door, but I must have. Because when I drove past with my friend Adam the next morning, the deadbolt was set. We didn't go in. The realtor has the keys now, and the place is on the market with a bland line about vintage charm. I haven't been back. The photos are in evidence, and the officers said they'd be in touch. The kind of phrase you hear right before nothing ever gets solved. People ask why I won't grab my things, why I'm paying a mortgage for a place I won't step into. This sounds crazy, but sometimes at 3 a.m., when the street is empty and the fridge is the only noise in my friend's kitchen, I feel watched again. Not by a person exactly, by a viewpoint. Like the house learned to open its eyes through whoever lived in that crawl space. And now those eyes are out, and they know me. My name's Mike. I'm 28 and living back at my parents' place to save money. The basement is basically frozen in time from high school. Dusty carpet, the old TV on a cheap stand, a beat-up PlayStation, 2 controllers with the rubber worn smooth, a leaning stack of games, and a few too many dents in the drywall from a controller flying through the air after a bad loss. My best friend Eli and I were down there every day. We were both soccer freaks, so it was always FIFA. Best of 3 turned into best of 5, then golden goal because I have to go. He died in a car accident 5 years ago. Closed casket. It broke me at the time, and in all honesty, I've still not recovered now. I don't think I ever will. I hadn't returned home since he died. This January, a little after 1 a.m., I was carrying laundry down. The pull chain light is at the bottom, so the stairs are dark until your foot hits the last step. As my shoe touched concrete, I heard my name. Normal voice from the TV corner. The exact way Eli used to say it when he wanted me to toss him a controller. I froze. The chain swung once and settled. I said hello, because what else do you say? No reply. Just the freezer hum and the washer ticking as it cooled. I dumped the clothes in, started a quick cycle, and went upstairs telling myself, old house and tired brain. 2 nights later, around the same time, I hear it again. Same tone, but he used the nickname only he ever called me. I said his name back, more firmly this time, but again, silence. I unplugged the PlayStation like that would fix anything, and left the light on all night. After that, it started happening once or twice a week, always right as my foot hit the last step. Sometimes just my name, sometimes a soft come on, the exact "one more match" voice he used when it was already past curfew. One time, I heard the tiny plastic click of a controller button. If you've played PlayStation for a decade, you know that sound blindfolded. Every time, I was never panicked or scared, as it never felt threatening or menacing. I tried to be rational. I cleaned the vents, tightened the bulb, checked for drafts. I set my phone to record a few nights. All I got was furnace noise and a faint hiss. One clip has a murmur at the edge of hearing that could be anything. Not proof, just enough to keep me thinking about it. I mentioned it to my mom like a joke. She said she hadn't heard anything. March was the worst. I sat on the bottom step and just talked like an idiot. I told him I was sorry I didn't call back the night before the accident, that I miss him, that I still think about a game we never finished, The one where he paused at 2-2 and said, "Hold on, I want to tell you something." And then my mom yelled dinner and we ran upstairs. I waited. Nothing. I went to bed feeling dumb. Around 3:20 a.m. that night, I suddenly awoke. I took a moment trying to figure out why. You know that confused feeling when you suddenly wake up for no reason? I had no answers, but felt myself compelled to go down to the basement. Now, this is where it gets really weird. And still to this day, I can't explain. But when I went downstairs, the basement TV was fully on. The screen was bright blue. The volume bar flickered like someone had tapped it. Even stranger, both controllers sat on the table, despite never being placed there for over a decade. I was frozen, but again, not scared. It was such a strange feeling. I called out a hello, but nothing. Just silence. I shut everything off and went back upstairs. I slept with the hallway light on that night, like I was 8 years old again. It's not every night, but oftentimes. The second I touch that last step, I hear my name in his exact voice. Once, there were 2 palm-shaped clean spots in the dust on the coffee table, like someone leaned forward during a replay. Another time, the memory card was plugged in, and the PlayStation tray was open with FIFA in it. I hadn't touched it. I considered the easy answers: grief, stress, old pipes, etc. But here's the problem. Grief doesn't teach your brain to copy a person's voice down to the dumb half-laugh they make when they score a last-minute winner. That's what I hear. A couple weeks ago, I tried meeting it halfway. I cleaned the controllers, hooked the PS2 properly, and sat on the bottom step. I said if he wanted one more, I was here. The basement felt heavier, like before a storm. But nothing happened. I'm hoping one day, maybe it will. But I know that's crazy even as I write it.